It's Monday. Happy Monday, everybody. It is 7:30 a.m. West Coast time on Monday, August 25th. Yesterday, Sunday, I was going through some news stories and some news sites, and I clicked on a link in an article that I was reading, and that took me to a website that I haven't been to in quite some time. The website for the Federalist, which I believe is still being run by Nepo baby Meghan McCain's husband, Ben Domenech. I perused some. I'm going to go through an article here in a second that was up on their website, and I read 3 or 4 articles, and they were short, like 3-minute reads kind of thing, and I realized very MAGA, very far right, very incendiary, very rage baity, not journalism by any stretch of the imagination, as you're about to see here in a moment. But I realized that websites like this are designed on purpose. I think that's just my opinion, but it's like you read through one of these articles and you realize that by the time you get to the end of whatever article that you're reading on the website, the Federalist, that you are dumber than you were before you read that article, and you're angrier than you were before you read that article. And, I saw somebody talking about COVID and long COVID last week, and they were saying, that you can wind up in this kind of, like, every time that you get COVID, you can actually lose IQ points. The same thing is true for websites like the Federalist. I was much dumber when I got done reading this article, and I was angry, but for different reasons than I think were intended by the person who wrote this article for the Federalist. The headline, so this is about the FBI's raid at John Bolton's home last Friday. Never Trumpers who cheered Mar-a-Lago raid melt down at search of John Bolton's house. The FBI searched the home of former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton Friday, reportedly in relation to Bolton's alleged possession of classified documents. Unsurprisingly, the same people who had no problem when the FBI raided the home of President Donald Trump are melting down. Right there in the first paragraph. These two things are exactly the same. There are no differences between these two things. And you know how I know that that's not journalism? Because I made a video about this on Saturday where I went through the first several pages of Donald Trump's indictment for his theft, possession, obstruction, relative to classified documents that he had at Mar-a-Lago. These two situations could not be further apart in the differences, none of which are addressed in this 50 IQ point article. Olivia Troy, former Homeland Security Advisor to Vice President Mike Pence, said on Twitter that the search is an example of authoritarianism. Quote, when Kash Patel turns the FBI into Trump's revenge squad, that's not justice, it's authoritarianism. Today it's John Bolton, tomorrow it could be any other critic who dares defy Trump. The Bureau's credibility is being gutted from within. This is intimidation, not law enforcement. Every American should be alarmed. She's 100% correct. Troy, of course, had no grave concerns about authoritarianism after the August 2022 Mar-a-Lago raid, when she jumped on CNN to speculate that Trump had mishandled secret documents and was in bed with foreign adversaries. She was correct on that as well. Just look at what happened with Putin over the last couple of weeks. And she goes through a whole bunch of other people on the left, comparing their tweets about John Bolton and comparing their tweets about when the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago. What she left out is multiple things. First of all, When the National Archives discovered that Donald Trump had taken a bunch of classified documents with him to Mar-a-Lago after he left office, they created an inventory of those documents. They sent a letter to Trump at Mar-a-Lago saying, please return these documents. No request of John Bolton was ever made by the government to return classified documents. No specific classified documents in John Bolton's possession have been identified by this government. Second, Trump returned a few classified documents and was like, yeah, that's everything. The National Archives was like, no, that's actually not. You still have the following classified documents in your possession. And then they involved the Department of Justice, who made a similar request, which Trump ignored. Then the Department of Justice sent Trump a subpoena. This was around June of 2022 or 2023, I can't remember which. In responding to that subpoena, Trump and his co-conspirator, Walt Nauta, at Mar-a-Lago, moved multiple boxes containing classified documents to different areas in Mar-a-Lago. There was a room with remaining boxes. Donald Trump lied to his own attorney and said, everything I have is in this room. And his attorney was like, okay, I'm going to go through every document in this room. And he did. And he pulled out multiple additional classified documents. But Donald Trump's attorney at the time, I can't remember his name, he's no dummy. He signed an affidavit about his search and that they believed that they had obtained all remaining classified documents. He had one of Trump's other attorneys sign that affidavit so that he wouldn't be on the hook on it, because I think he knew that Donald Trump was lying to him. That's obstruction. Donald Trump and Walt Nauta also tried to erase all of the Mar-a-Lago security camera footage of them moving all of those boxes around different locations at Mar-a-Lago. And it was only after that second production of documents that the DOJ and the National Archives realized that there were still classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. And so then, after almost a year's worth of efforts to get these documents back, only then did they exercise a search warrant. None of those things were done here relative to Trump's DOJ, Trump's FBI, relative to John Bolton. They haven't identified any specific documents. They haven't made any specific allegations at all. Donald Trump is simply upset that John Bolton, his former national security advisor, wrote a book saying that Donald Trump is shitty at diplomacy and is a bumbling clown. That's why the FBI raided his house last Friday morning. So if you work somewhere like the Federalist and you purport to be a journalist and you approach these two events, these two FBI searches, as the same without including the context of Donald Trump, 34-time convicted felon, who was indicted for 32 violations of the Espionage Act in the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case. If you equate these two searches as being the same, you are really terrible at your job. You know that you are intentionally making Americans dumber than they were before they read your article about this. And you should feel really, really bad about yourself. You should feel really bad about yourself. You should question all of your values. And you should go back to school and perhaps learn how to become an electrician or a plumber.